Arsenal already had control, they already had structure, they already had one of the strongest midfields in England, and now they are preparing to add Bruno Guimarães. At first, this looks like another elite signing, but look closer. Bruno does not simply improve Arsenal's midfield. He changes what opponents are allowed to do against it. He can receive under pressure, escape the first line, survive physical battles, and turn a chaotic match back into Arsenal's match. That means more control for Declan Rice, more freedom for Martin Odegaard, and fewer moments where Arsenal's entire system begins to break. But the real damage goes even deeper. Arsenal are not only gaining Newcastle's captain, they may be removing the midfielder who gave one of their direct rivals its personality, aggression and belief. One transfer could strengthen Arsenal, weaken Newcastle, and reshape the balance of the Premier League at the same time. This is not another piece for Arteta's midfield. This may be the piece that completes it. Arsenal and Newcastle have reportedly reached an agreement in principle worth around €90 million, although bonuses and agent commissions still need to be completed. So what does Bruno change immediately? The first answer is simple. He gives Arsenal control when control becomes difficult. Arsenal can dominate territory, circulate the ball and force opponents deeper. But the biggest matches are not played entirely on Arsenal's terms. There are moments when the press arrives faster, passing lanes disappear and the game becomes emotional. That is where Bruno becomes valuable. He does not panic when a defender is on his back. He protects the ball, draws contact, finds the next pass and gives the team another second to reorganize. That second can change everything. It can allow Rice to move forward instead of dropping toward the centre-backs. It can allow Odegaard to remain between the lines instead of returning deep to rescue possession. It can allow the full-backs to advance because the midfielder behind them can survive the first wave of pressure. Bruno does not remove risk by playing safely. He removes risk by making pressure less dangerous. Arsenal are not buying another player who looks comfortable when the match is calm. They are buying someone who can make the match calm again. The footage tells an even scarier story. Bruno can change Declan Rice without replacing him. Rice has often been asked to solve several problems at once. Recover the ball, protect transitions, carry possession forward, arrive around the box, cover the space behind advanced teammates. But asking him to do everything can reduce the damage he causes higher up the pitch. Bruno can share the responsibility at the base and release Rice into the areas where his power becomes harder to contain. Imagine the rotation. Bruno receives from the centre-backs. Rice steps beyond the first line. Odegaard midfielder holds the centre, one attacks the next zone and one controls the final pass. The shape can change without the structure disappearing. If Bruno drops, if Rice holds, Bruno can move closer to the attack. If Odegaard drifts wide, Bruno can protect the central lane. This is not about placing three famous names together. It is about giving Arsenal three different solutions inside the same midfield. And this is what opponents may fear most. Arsenal could become harder to press because there is no obvious target. Press Bruno and Rice may receive behind you. Follow Rice and Odegaard may appear between the lines. Close the centre and Arsenal can switch wide before the defensive block resets. Bruno is not simply another passer. He understands how to manipulate pressure. He invites an opponent close, waits for the commitment, and then moves the ball into the space that opponent has abandoned. The best pressing teams do not only attack the ball, they attack predictable decisions. They want the midfielder to turn toward one side. They want the next pass to become obvious. Bruno can break that chain. He scans early, changes his body position and uses short combinations to escape crowded areas. He can make a press look aggressive for 1 second and completely empty the next. Arsenal already know how to dominate teams that retreat. Bruno can help them dominate teams brave enough to come forward. Now look closer at what happens after Arsenal lose the ball. This transfer is not only about possession disappears, it is about the 5 seconds after possession disappears. He steps into duels, blocks passing lanes and understands when stopping the transition is more valuable than making a desperate recovery run. He is not a pure defensive midfielder, and Arsenal should not ask him to protect the entire pitch alone. But beside Rice, he can help create a midfield to play through, and even harder to intimidate. The contrast is important. Rice covers ground with power. Bruno controls space through anticipation and contact. One can chase the transition. The other can delay it before the chase becomes necessary. Together, they could give Arsenal a stronger structure behind the attack. The forwards can commit with greater confidence. The fullbacks can move higher. One lost pass does not automatically become an open race toward Arsenal's goal. The scary part is not only that Bruno can help Arsenal create more, it is that he can make every Arsenal attack feel less dangerous for Arsenal themselves. But there is another problem Bruno may solve, and it cannot be measured through passing maps. Title races create a different pressure. Every draw becomes a warning. Every injury becomes a crisis. Every difficult away match feels connected to the failures that came before it. In those moments, a team needs more than instructions from the touchline. It needs players who can recognize the emotional temperature from inside the game. Bruno has carried that responsibility at Newcastle. He has been their captain, organiser and emotional reference point. When the crowd rises, he rises with it. When the match becomes physical, he does not disappear. When teammates lose control, he demands the ball again. That personality can matter inside an Arsenal dressing room already filled with quality. He does not need to take leadership away from Odegaard, Rice or the existing group. He can make the leadership structure wider, stronger and more difficult to break. Newcastle's captain was also named the club's Player of the Year after scoring 9 Premier League goals during the 2025-26 campaign. But here is the twist. The transfer only works if Arsenal understand what Bruno is not. He is not a traditional lone number sixpence and solve every counter-attack by himself. He should not be asked to cover the entire width of the pitch while everyone else attacks. And he is not arriving without risk. The reported fee is enormous. Every misplaced pass pale become will the Pryschen immediate. And did every midfield defeat when they need the same question? Did Arsenal buy a luxury when they needed something else? That is why the partnership matters more than the name. Bruno needs structure around him. He needs Rice's athletic coverage, defenders willing to squeeze the pitch and attackers prepared to counter-press. Arsenal should not remove the qualities that made him special at Newcastle by turning him into a passive holding midfielder. They should use his aggression, press resistance and ability to move between the 6 and 8 roles. The transfer becomes frightening only if Bruno is allowed to be Bruno, but inside a system more controlled than anything he had before. Only now does the past matter, because Bruno was not developed inside a protected super club where every weakness could be hidden. His path moved through Brazil, Lyon and then Newcastle, where he joined a team trying to climb rather than one already living at the top. He learned to receive under pressure because Newcastle often needed him to begin the escape. He learned to fight because Premier League midfields gave him no choice. He learned to lead because the club's rise created expectations faster than the squad could always handle them. That experience matters because Arsenal do not need another player who understands only dominance. They need someone who understands the journey into dominance. Bruno has played in matches where Newcastle had to suffer, where possession was limited and where one emotional duel could change the entire stadium. He has experienced European football, domestic cup pressure and the of turning ambition into belief. The lesson is not that he has already completed every challenge Arsenal face. Lisak infied D's fees. The lesson is that he has been forged inside different versions of the game. And then comes the damage to Newcastle. Losing Bruno would not be like losing one position on a team sheet. It would mean losing the player who connected their midfield, crowd and competitive identity. Replacing his passes is possible. Replacing his goals may be possible. Replacing the trust around him is harder. Newcastle would need a new captain, a new organiser and a new emotional centre while the season is approaching. Arsenal would gain one solution, would inherit several new problems. That is why this move could alter more than Arsenal's starting 11. Direct rivals are not only separated by the players they sign, they are separated by the stability those signings remove from somewhere else. Bruno gives Arsenal another elite midfielder, but he may also take certainty away from Newcastle. One club becomes deeper, calmer and more flexible. The other loses the player who made difficult matches feel controllable. This is not simply movement between two clubs, it is a transfer of authority. Now the final question is simple. Does Bruno make Arsenal champions? No single midfielder can promise that. Football does not work that way. Injuries, form, finishing and the pressure of decisive matches will still matter. The real question is whether he removes situations that previously made Arsenal vulnerable. Can he help them escape pressure without losing structure? Can he release Rice without exposing the defence? Can he keep Odegaard higher? Can he make difficult away matches feel less emotional and more controllable? If the answer is yes, then Arsenal have not merely added quality, they have reduced uncertainty. Bruno can help them play faster without becoming rushed, attack with more numbers without becoming careless, and fight through pressure without abandoning control. That combination is rare. It is exactly what separates a strong midfield from one that dictates the entire match. Arsenal already had the pieces. Rice gave them power. Odegaard gave them imagination. The system gave them structure. Bruno could give them the connection between all three. He may not produce the most spectacular highlight every week, but he can change where Arsenal control matches, how they survive pressure, and how quickly they recover when the plan begins to break. And that is why this move changes everything. Not because Bruno Guimarães will rebuild Arsenal's midfield from nothing, but because he may remove the final spaces where opponents still believe they could hurt it. Arsenal are not buying another midfielder. They are buying more control, more aggression and fewer excuses. Newcastle may be losing their captain. The Premier League may be watching Arsenal complete the final piece. This is not another signing for the project. This is the signing that could finish it.